Hi, welcome to a special program where we will take a wrap up of the year 2020. 2020 was not an ordinary year for sure. And if there's a one word which would describe this year, it was COVID-19, and it needs no explanation. It also saw a dramatic shift in Indo-China relations when the fatalities were reported for the first time in the last 45 years. India responded quite hard to what Prime Minister Narendra Modi has called expansionism designs. J&K was also equally affected by the COVID-19, but it also saw other major events. In Kashmir, PDP and NC and other smaller parties came together to form an alliance called People's Alliance of Gupkar Declaration. But there was a major takeaway in this. Coming together of National Conference and PDP was hitherto considered an unthinkable, but it did happen, and in the year 2020. The democratic process, which was stalled since August 5, 2019, slowly started coming on the tracks. For the first time in the last 70 years, District Development Council elections were held, which the Prime Minister Narendra Modi described as a historic event. In this special edition, we will take a long view of these events, how they unfolded, how they affected us, and what were their repercussions. The first major event we have taken in our special edition program this year is obviously COVID-19. It was a single event which changed the world like never before. No one comprehended that it would hit the world so hard. It wreaked havoc across the globe. Lakhs of people died. As per the latest figures, 1.77 million people across the world have already died. In India, the figure is 1.48 lakh, and in Jammu and Kashmir, the figure has already touched about 2,000. To counter this pandemic, governments across the world imposed strict lockdowns. Jammu and Kashmir, in fact, was the first one to take proactive measures. Cities across the world and in Jammu and Kashmir too looked like ghost towns. There was a huge rush of migrants to reach home as everything was closed. The desperate migrants pleaded with the authorities to send them home by making any sort of arrangements. The economy suffered a major blow. Across the world and in India and in Jammu and Kashmir, jobs were lost. People living on daily wages were worst hit. Factories were ransacked over non-payment of salaries. There was chaos and confusion all around. People found it difficult to meet the two ends. By the later half of the year, though things started coming back gradually, but there was a reluctance among people, especially to commute in public transport. As the government started getting hold of the things, it stepped up testing. Massive testing camps were held across Jammu and Kashmir. Doctors and nurses and paramedic staff worked overtime. By the end of the year, news of vaccines started coming in. India and Jammu and Kashmir still waits for it.
आने वाले जब आपने पिछली बैठक में निर्देश दिया था कि कोविड की वैक्सीनेशन की तैयारी करनी चाहिए, मैं आपको बताना चाहता हूं कि पूरी मुकम्मल तैयारी हम सब ने की है, और जब भी वो मिलेगा तो मैं समझता हूं कि बहुत कम समय में जो लोग चिन्हित होंगे उन्हें वैक्सीन उपलब्ध कराने में हम सफलता प्राप्त कर सकेंगे.
The second major event of this year was the clash between Indian and Chinese soldiers in eastern Ladakh in the area Galwan. 20 Indian soldiers died, and the Chinese side too suffered equal casualties. Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited the forward areas and met with injured soldiers. In a stern message, but without naming China, Modi said India will defend every inch of its territory, but also said, quite importantly, that the era of expansionism is over.
मानवता की प्रगति के लिए शांति और मित्रता हर कोई स्वीकार करता है, हर कोई मानता है बहुत जरूरी है, लेकिन हम ये भी जानते हैं कि शांति निर्बल कभी नहीं ला सकता। विस्तारवाद का युग समाप्त हो चुका है। ये युग विकासवाद का है। विस्तारवाद ने ही मानवता का सबसे ज्यादा हित किया, मानवता को विनाश करने का प्रयास किया।
Home Minister Rajnath Singh and Army Chief General Naravne also visited the Ladakh. Many rounds of talks were held between Indian Army and the Chinese counterparts. But consensus continues to elude as India insists on restoring status quo ante. India has pushed in more troops and retaliated by banning Chinese apps including TikTok. There was public uproar and protest across the country against China. India, in a surprise move, captured heights at Rinchila, which caught Chinese army off guard. Both armies are now digged in for harsh winter. Only a few days back, General Naravne again visited the eastern Ladakh. But till now, the Chinese authorities are not agreeing to maintain the sanctity of LAC. Only on December 17, 2 Chinese vehicles entered in Ladakh. They were pushed back and sent back into their territory after strong protest by locals and the local authorities. Another highlight of this year was the holding of District Development Council elections in Jammu and Kashmir. It completed the 3-tier Panchayati Raj system, which the earlier government, when Jammu and Kashmir was a state, were not agreeing to or reluctant. The Prime Minister Narendra Modi described the event as historic as far as the Jammu and Kashmir is concerned. It was the first major election after Article 370 was revoked on August 5, 2019. But there was a major event. It was a contest between BJP and the Kashmir-based political parties. As the result unfolded, BJP swept the Jammu region and the alliance Kashmir. BJP emerged as the single largest party by winning 75 seats in the DD's elections. It could not make a major mark in the Kashmir, but it did win 3 seats, which was quite a major event. There were other things also. The much hyped Apni party failed to make much of a mark, and the Congress clearly was a loser.
मैं जम्मू कश्मीर के लोगों को लोकतंत्र को मजबूत करने के लिए भी अनेक 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 बधाइयां देता हूं। डिस्ट्रिक्ट डेवलपमेंट काउंसिल के चुनाव में एक नया अध्याय लिखा।
Another major event was the issuing of domicile certificates to the people living in Jammu and Kashmir. If there is a one word which can describe the importance of domicile certificate, it is like before August 5, 2019, the state subject was a major identity paper, and in the post-August 5, 2019, it is also one of the major identity papers, but there is a difference. The state subject created the binary of us of J&K versus India, but the domicile certificate obliterated this binary. These certificates were issued to any other person who is living in Jammu and Kashmir for the last 15 years. But it also ended an years of discrimination with people like West Pakistan refugees, the members of Valmiki community, and the females of Jammu and Kashmir who were married outside now the Union Territory. West Pakistan refugees, members of the Valmiki community who were denied this basic right of being a citizen of Jammu and Kashmir were issued these certificates. They, for the first time, felt being a citizen of not only India but also of Jammu and Kashmir. It also marked an end of discrimination with these communities, and also the females of Jammu and Kashmir who before August 5, 2019 would lose their identity if married outside this Union Territory. But there was a pushback also from Kashmir-based parties. Farooq Abdullah termed the issuance of domicile certificate as unconstitutional and illegal.
So, which is illegal, which is unconstitutional. How do you think I'm going to accept what is unconstitutional?
In Jammu region, there were also concerns that it will open floodgates for competition for already scarce government jobs. Panthers Party in particular had protest demonstration on this issue.
लेकिन जो डोमिसाइल लॉ बना है उसमें सिर्फ क्लास 4 के जॉब्स ही जम्मू कश्मीर के नौजवानों के लिए सुरक्षित रखे गए हैं और बाकी के जॉब्स पूरे हिंदुस्तान के लिए खोल दिए गए हैं। यानी पूरे हिंदुस्तान से किसी भी स्टेट से कोई भी पढ़ा लिखा नौजवान आकर जम्मू कश्मीर में सिलेक्शन प्रोसेस में पार्टिसिपेट कर सकता है और यहाँ के जॉब्स हासिल कर सकता है। ये यहाँ के नौजवानों के साथ एक बहुत बड़ा धोखा है।
Post-August 2019, the year 2019 would go down in the history, which was marked by strict restrictions, political detentions across Jammu and Kashmir. 2020 would go down into the history when these very political leaders were released. 3 former Chief Ministers, Farooq Abdullah, Umar Abdullah and Mehbooba Mufti were released after months of detention, while Umar and Farooq were released in March.
232 days since I was removed from here and detained at the behest of the administration. In these 232 days, a lot has happened. A lot has changed.
Mehbooba Mufti was released in October. She served the longest detention.
मैं आज 1 साल से भी ज्यादा अरसे के बाद रिहा हुई हूँ। इस दौरान 5 अगस्त 2019 के काले दिन का काला फैसला हर पल मेरे दिल और रूह पे वार करता रहा और मुझे एहसास है कि यही कैफियत जम्मू कश्मीर के तमाम लोगों की रही होगी। हम में से कोई भी शख्स उस दिन की डाकाजनी और बेइज्जती को कतन भूल नहीं सकता।
Another once BJP ally, Sajjad Lone, was also released after about an year of detention. After coming out of their detention, they again raked up anti-India rhetoric, but they had tempered down a bit also. Their release set the political process on track once again, and holding of DDC elections by their participation sent the right signal that their release was in the interest of democratic institutions. For last about 2 decades, the two parties of the Kashmir had contested each other in a very hard manner. National Conference and PDP were always at each other's throat as far as the political dimension of the Kashmir is concerned. But this year they came together and formed an alliance. Farooq Abdullah made this announcement after Mehbooba Mufti called him at his residence.
हमने फैसला किया है कि ये जो गुप्ता डिक्लेरेशन है इसका नाम होगा पीपल्स अलायंस फॉर गुप्ता डिक्लेरेशन। इसका नाम है हमारा मकसद है कि जो आईनी सूरत हाल 5 अगस्त को पिछले साल उसको बहाल किया।
The alliance of all the major political parties of Kashmir region was called People's Alliance for Gupkar Declaration, and the stated objective was restoring Article 370. Coming together of all these political parties was unthinkable till few months back. Home Minister Amit Shah responded hard to this alliance by calling it a Gupkar camp, and in a series of tweets he said they want foreign forces to intervene in Jammu and Kashmir, and they also insult the national flag. His statement has to be seen in the context of the statement made by Mehbooba Mufti, who had said she would not hold the Indian flag till Article 370 is restored.
We stand by what we have said and inshallah we'll unite people. हम अभी तो आपस में हमारा यूनाइट होना कितना मुश्किल था, मगर जहाँ तक मेरा पर्सन का सवाल है, मैं अपने झंडे और अपने आइन के अंदर इलेक्शन लड़ने में इंटरेस्टेड नहीं हूँ। मेरी जहाँ ज़ात का सवाल है महबूबा मुफ्ती का, तो महबूबा मुफ्ती जो है इस झंडे के बगैर, अपने आइन के बगैर कोई हलफ लेने के लिए तैयार नहीं है।
A new chip on the block as far as the Kashmir politics is concerned was the announcement of Apni Party. It has got leaders from both National Conference as well as the PDP. But the major stop came from the PDP, and As Mehbooba Mufti has said it time and again, the forces are hell-bent on breaking her party. But that's a different concern why she is not getting hold of her own party and why the leaders are deserting it. But the formation of Apni party has a potential of redefining the politics of Jammu and Kashmir. And there is one major reason why National Conference and PDP have openly called for restoring Article 370. Apni party is shying away in saying it categorically.
A party that can respond to rational aspirations of people without promising them moon or stars. We are not here to sell dreams or fantasy to our people, and instead shall always be pragmatic, honest and fair in our approach. We, the subscribers to this declaration, hereby constitute and form a political party under the name and style of Jammu and Kashmir Apni Party.
While the 2020 has clearly established that Modi wave still continues across the length and breadth of the country. In the Jammu and Kashmir, as far as the Jammu and region is concerned, the elections of DDC clearly point towards this. And in Ladakh also, BJP swept the elections of Ladakh Autonomous Hill Development Councils. BJP clearly emerged as a single largest party. Independents too won the seats, but the major loser was Congress party. Though these elections were held in the backdrop of series of protests as people demanded granting 6th schedule to Ladakh, they were apt or the tempers were toned down when Home Minister invited the leaders of Ladakh for a meeting and said everything would be done to take care and secure the identity of Ladakh.
मैं लद्दाख के आवाम को, लद्दाख के वासियों को, यहाँ के रहने वाले वोटर्स को धन्यवाद देना चाहूँगा। भारतीय जनता पार्टी को एक कंफर्टेबल मेजॉरिटी के साथ एक बार फिर से लद्दाख ऑटोनोमस हिल डेवलपमेंट काउंसिल में सरकार चलाने का जो मौका दिया।
As the year comes to close, another major takeaway is that the militancy has not gone away. Though the security forces stepped up pressure against militants, this year 229 militants have been killed so far. It is the highest figure in the last 1 decade. In 2010, 258 militants were killed. This year, 32 civilians also got killed and 52 security personnel were also martyred. But the major takeaway of this year was security forces stepped up pressure against top commanders of militant outfits. Riaz Naiku, who was once a name synonymous with terror, was shot at. A new outfit, TRF, which claimed responsibilities for a number of attacks, was also almost completely wiped out. The top leadership as well as the cadre of TRF was almost wiped out.
हालांकि पिछले 6 महीना से एचएम के कमांडर रियाज नायकू के पीछे थे, इन्फॉर्मेशन जनरेट कर रहे थे। नेक्स्ट डे कल जाके सुबह 9 बजे जब मिलिटेंट ने पहले फाइट किया, फिर हमारे फोर्स ने रिटेलिएट किया। उस रिटेलिएशन में जैसा कि हम सब जानते हैं, एचएम का चीफ जो था पिछले 8 ईयर से एक्टिव था और पिछले 3 साल से एचएम का कमांडर था, उसमें मारे गए।
Militants in Kashmir targeted Panch and Sarpanches affiliated to BJP. Bhupender Singh, Sajjad Ahmed Khande were killed in Kulgam. 3 BJP workers were also shot dead. 9 BJP workers and leaders in Kashmir were killed between July and October this year. Ajay Pandita, a Kashmiri Pandit living in Kashmir and affiliated to Congress, was also killed by militants. Militants also targeted Jammu region and Jammu city in particular. There were 2 major encounters at one toll plaza. Though on both the occasions, security forces were able to neutralize militants. Pak continued to push in militants through tunnels. 7 tunnels were detected across international border in Jammu region.
में टनल मिली थी, वो भी सांबा सेक्टर में पड़ती थी। पाकिस्तान जैश ए मोहम्मद की क्रॉसिंग वहां से करवा रहा था। ये एक नई टनल है जो पुरानी टनल बंद हो जाने के बाद पाकिस्तान ने दफारा खोजी है। टनल के ऊपर भी पाकिस्तान की मोहर है। इस बैग के ऊपर देखिए पाकिस्तान कराची से जो बैग है, सीमेंट बैग जो लगा हुआ है।
The security forces encouraged local militants to surrender even during encounter. So these were the major events which defined the year 2020. And new year will look forward to some of the major things. First among them will be the eagerly awaited vaccination of COVID-19. Secondly would be how Indo-China relations settle down, and will China agree to restore status quo ante? As far as the Jammu and Kashmir is concerned, we will look forward to how DDC elections pan out, especially how the democratic process start taking roots. As far as the economy is concerned, like the rest of the world, Jammu and Kashmir also waits a major surge in economic boost. It depends on a host of factors, but we look forward to it that the things started coming back on the tracks as far as the economy is concerned. Well, 2020 was not which we would say a happy year. It was marked by tragedies and traumas and so many concerns about our livelihood. And it also had a psychological effect, especially among the children who started working online. But there was a flip side to it, was they remained in silos. In 2021, we look forward the children's coming back to the schools. And their smiles bring back smiles on us and the world as a whole. So this was our special edition on the year 2020. We look forward to meet you in 2021. Thanks for watching us.